Welcome back to Begley's Mailbag, where we answer your questions about the NBA. We're going to start off with a query from Vasker in Greece, who says, is it ever possible with this team and this coach and this GM that they're going to be competitive? How long do we have to wait to see a title? I'm 49 years old, suffering from coronary disease. Time is running out. Do something! Exclamation point. Well, Vasker, I'm sure many Knicks fans kind of feel the same way. They're on edge. They want to see a title soon. Obviously for you, I hope everything's okay with your health issues, but I would say that be patient with this group at this particular juncture, because you have a front office that just came in pretty much last year, maybe a year and a half ago. And so they showed you something year one. This season obviously is not going the way anybody expected it to, particularly the front office. But we'll see what they do at the trade deadline, and we'll see what they do in the offseason. And I do think that Leon Rose and his group was brought here to bring a star to New York and to bring a title to New York. So just hang on there, wait and see how this year plays out before you start to get too impatient. I think that's the best course here. If I were a Knicks fan, that's what I would do. Great topic here from @Camille888. Camille asks, is Fournier likely to be moved by the trade deadline, or is he primed to be part of a bigger package down the line for a more established star? I think with Fournier, you have to look at his contract, and he was the longest deal that the Knicks agreed to in the offseason. 3 years, team option, 4th year. So if you're a team that's maybe looking to rebuild, I don't think that Fournier contract is that appetizing, because it's a longer term deal. You have extra years on the books. So I don't think that there's a market there from teams that are not in contention. From contending teams, if you're looking for a shooter, I don't like, again, the contract that might be too much for a team that's contending and is looking for somebody who could come in and make shots. So I think, as far as a Fournier trade, you would look to maybe next season or the season beyond that, when the contract is a little bit shorter, easier to digest for the team acquiring Fournier. But I'll say this, though, Fournier, he's a proven commodity in this league. I know he has struggled for much of this early Knicks season with knocking down shots, but I think eventually he's going to play to the back of his basketball card, so to speak. And I mean that he will eventually knock shots down. He will eventually, hit a bunch of threes for this team if they remain patient. I don't think he came here and he just forgot how to shoot. I think it's just a matter of the law of averages playing out, and I think he'll knock more shots down as the season progresses. Now we have a question from @NotJesus, who asks, what would you do right now if you were the Knicks GM? Lineup changes, trades, minutes, doesn't matter. Now, in terms of lineups and minutes, I'm of the belief that that's Tom Thibodeau's call. I don't think the front office GM, Scott Perry, or anybody in the front office is really dictating to Tom Thibodeau what lineups to use, how many minutes to play players, although I do think that there was a push to play some of the younger guys at the end of blowouts more often. But I don't know. I don't think anybody's telling Tom Thibodeau what to do. But if I was the Knicks GM, if I was in the front office, I think you're in a place now where you kind of have to make a move that pushes you more towards winning. I don't think you can do like a total teardown at this point because of where you were last year, the moves you made in this past offseason. Obviously, you have some flexibility with the contracts you signed last offseason because there's not one really long-term deal on there that's clogging your books. But I think you've made it clear since you took over that you're here to win and win now. So I think you have to continue with that process looking into this trade deadline. And so I would do something like a Miles Turner where, I think that Turner could help my team win more games right now. And I want to continue to build off the momentum that we had last year. So if I'm in the seat, if I'm taking the calls, that's where I would go. Our buddy @TangoTac checks in with, it stinks that Deuce, Miles McBride, has to now sit due to COVID protocols. Do you think Tibbs will give him a chance to get steady minutes in the rotation? That's a great question, because up until that point where the Knicks had suffered injuries and COVID absences, there wasn't a place for Miles McBride. There wasn't a place for Quentin Grimes. But both of those players came out and played really well. So it gives Tom Thibodeau decisions to make there. And I think part of it depends on if the Knicks fully pivot to playing the young guys, developing the young guys, and make winning less of a priority. I don't see them doing that. So I think it's going to be tricky for both Grimes and McBride to find minutes. Obviously, Kemba Walker now out of the rotation, so there are minutes to be had at the point guard position. But, the way Tom Thibodeau is playing it, Alec Burks, Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickley all getting time at point guard, he would have to shake some things up to find minutes for McBride. Maybe the move is to put Alec Burks back to off the ball to do that. But I think it depends in a big picture sense about the direction of this Knicks team. Are they going to continue to prioritize winning this season, or are they going to pivot and prioritize playing the young guys and letting them develop on the floor? My guess is they'll keep continuing to prioritize winning, but we'll see how it goes. Next, we have a question from Avery D. Torf, who asks, update on the Ben Simmons situation involving the Knicks. Have discussions advanced? Now, I'll say as a caveat, things can change at any minute in the NBA, but last few days I hadn't heard about anything advancing to a serious stage, because with the Knicks, you would have to be a third team in a deal to get Ben Simmons. You would need another team to send out a top 20 player to Philadelphia to make it work, I think. And those deals are complicated, 3-team deals. So the Knicks would have the assets to send to that other team to get that top player to Philly, but it's just hard to get every 3 teams to coordinate on a trade. So I still see it as unlikely at this juncture. Plenty of weeks to go, though, before the February 10th trade deadline. Our thanks to the Cooler for chiming in with a great question. He asks, what will it take for you to criticize Leon Rose? His inability to land even a meeting with an impact free agent, giving Nerlens Noel and Derrick Rose way above market value extensions, and signing Kemba Walker as a PR move. You have no problem complimenting his draft picks. Now, I love this question so much because I think that there is, the tendency among some Knicks fans to kind of loop in like every front office with the past 20 years. So if the Knicks hit a skid, let's say this year's Knicks team not playing well, I sense some anxiety among some fans because they're so worried about the bottom dropping out because they've seen it so often over the last 2 decades. I get it because I've seen it and I've covered it. But I tend to take these front offices as kind of individual cases and judge them on their own. So in terms of criticizing Leon Rose, look, it's clear that so far the offseason moves, Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, haven't worked out the way that they had thought. But I see it as you have to wait until the trade deadline and even into the offseason to kind of judge this year in totality. And I think I wouldn't give an executive that much benefit of the doubt if it was, let's say, year 3 and the team hadn't won it all. But to me, they won last year. So he delivered. He put together a product that made the playoffs 4th seed in the East. And so I think he gets a little bit more rope than an exec of a team that has maybe struggled for 2 years and is struggling in year 3. So I think you wait to see what the front office does at the trade deadline and in the offseason, see what kind of moves they make, see who they can bring in to right the ship before you start to really, write the book on Leon Rose's front office. That's it for this episode of Begley's Mailbag. Thanks to everyone for your questions. Please keep them coming. We'll be sure to do this again soon.